It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
It's the Real Estate Breakfast, back for another weekend. And if you've ever wondered why we call it the Real Estate Breakfast, quite simple really. Our podcast interviews never go too long in length. No, it's not a 1 hour case of listening to a podcast. It's about the same length of time it takes you to prepare and eat breakfast before heading out the door. Or perhaps you're on the drive to work listening to the podcast, or on a bus. That, of course, is totally dependent on where you live. It is a Saturday, January the 24th. Happy birthday if you're celebrating today. Neil Diamond, the American singer-songwriter behind that massive hit Sweet Caroline. He is turning 85. And it was on this day Apple Macintosh launched. 1984 was the year. Steve Jobs introduced the first Macintosh personal computer, which went on sale for the first time. And yes, I am an Apple boy, not Microsoft. Used to be Microsoft, but changed to Apple about 20 years ago. And that was it. Never looked back. Now, the Australian job market has surprised everyone. Unemployment slipped from 4.3% to 4.1% in December, and that's put some heat back under the Reserve Bank right before its next meeting. Employment jumped by 65,000, with both full-time and part-time workers growing, helped by more young people entering the workforce. Some economists now say the economy is running too hot and rates might need to rise along with your mortgage repayment, while other economists are saying, hey, just cool your heels. It's a little bit too early to say. The first RBA meeting for 2026, that is coming up on the first Tuesday of next month, so isn't too far away. Hey, coming up next, we are back to the summer series of real estate.
You're listening to the Summer Series on the Real Estate Podcast.
We're seeing here on the island that only the major banks will loan to the Southern Moreton Bay Islands, and that apparently is because we don't have a bridge. For a younger person to buy a house here, they need a 20% deposit. So imagine if the houses here were, an average house was $900,000. That's a huge deposit for anybody to save. We are seeing some mortgage brokers being able to get folks in on less than 20% with the assistance from the government. It's across the board. Even though we are an affordable suburb, the level of deposit required is pushing younger folks out of the market completely.
In Brisbane, this report throws up affordable options have almost vanished. There are just 5 suburbs recorded with a median house price of under 600,000. You were saying the median there at the moment is around 520 grand. I mean, that is, in today's market, extremely affordable, and the fact that you're so close to Brisbane, yet the bank is saying you ain't got a bridge.
Exactly. So we're finding, though, that because we're affordable, younger people are able to save that deposit. They can also get into lesser properties. We still have properties in the 400,000s, and that gives them a step into the market. There is opportunities. If you've got a good broker and you've got a good credit history, then there are ways and means. The reality of it is, for young people living in the city is a pipe dream. They're only going to be able to rent there. When I was young, buying my first home, I paid $50,000 for it. You can't even buy a house with a deposit of $50,000.
You were telling me off air that you used to have a gaggle of agents working for you. You had the payroll and so forth. Then you decided to change it up a little bit and just condense that down, all the way down to just you and a PA. Is that right?
That's correct. Some years ago, I had an office in Ipswich with, all the bells and whistles, multiple staff, all of the traditional things that come with running a real estate office. We left Ipswich and we've been on Mackay now for 8 years, and I've worked with agencies on the island and decided to work for myself again. And in discussion with my accountant, we were trying to come up with a plan that would still give me the financial security, but just doing it myself. So we pared everything back. So there is just myself, and I have a PA who is fully registered so that she can do all of the things that I do if necessary, but she's also a fantastic bookkeeper. So she does all of that side of the business and backs me up. Now, in paring all that back, my profitability is better than it was when I had a full-on real estate office. If there are budding real estate agents out there and you've got a full license and you're really not sure what you can do, you can do it on your own. You just have to make sure that you have what we call a farm area, that you are positive that you can get the listings. It's an incredible change. And if you'd asked me 3 years ago, did I expect it to be as successful as it is? No. With myself and my PA, we're averaging $35 million in written contracts per year.
You're killing it, Anne. You're killing it. And, you know, the natural progression, this is the thinking, I think, for a lot of top agents. You know, they are number one in their market. And the natural progression, good or bad, is, hey, let's get our own franchise. Not necessarily able to handle, you know, a bunch of people, because that is a whole different skill to being number one in selling real estate.
The thing is with real estate offices, you believe that the more people you have, the more listings you will have and the more money you will make. And that's not entirely true. Unless you are a well-known agent, they're not going to just come to you. They will go to a business name. Though you may be an LJ Hooker, you may be a Bell Real Estate, Ray White. They'll go to Ray White. They're not going to Ray White because Bob Smith is the principal and he's great. They're just going to Ray White because it says Ray White. And then they've got 30 people that they can choose from. Your business is being watered down. If you were just like me, Mackay Island Real Estate, they're coming to Mackay Island Real Estate. The only person they can deal with is me. I'm not sharing what I earn with anybody. My overheads are cut back to next to nothing. I have everything that every other agency has, but I don't have to share what I earn with a franchise or with the person I work for.
First home buyers, they're pretty excited because October the 1st, we've got first home buyers incentive that is here. What are you noticing in terms of conversations with people that are in that first home buying capacity?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're certainly seeing a lot of energy, particularly in those thresholds at the moment, up to about $1 million here in the ACT. Those incentives will come up to that threshold. And look, that market, as far as conversations, we're definitely seeing even further increase in numbers, and certainly those first home buyers in particular are really starting to get out in their numbers and look at making offers on properties. It's been something that they've been waiting for a period of time, and it feels as though that, you know, we're at that point. Once 1st of October comes around, we'll certainly have the buyers in the market continue to have a bit of competition.
Well, it's a kind of a double whammy too. You've got on the 1st of October what is coming down the pipe with what we're talking about, and then you've got the rate cut that is coming as well. Borrowing capacity, talk about sharpening up the pencil and getting a little bit more money. Banks are making it easier. Is that your experience with people you're talking to?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I've, again, speaking to some industry colleagues and people within that space, we're certainly seeing, I mean, we've had an ingredients of a number of things take place this year. Obviously, we've already had those 3 interest rate cuts. We've got through the election, and obviously here in Canberra, the election is always a big sticking point, particularly with the property market. But it just feels as though that the shackles are off a little bit as far as lending being quite a bit easier for those prospective buyers out there. And obviously, if there is that conversation, by the sounds that it will take place and we have another interest rate cut, it will only certainly impact, again, that competition that I talk about around buys, because if money's cheaper and things are easier, that generally translates into a fairly seamless market.
We are your local source for unbiased, expert insights into the world of real estate. We are not a real estate company. Our only objective is to help you better understand the real estate market.
And good morning and welcome, Jocelyn, to the Real Estate Breakfast. Yes, the migration, man oh man, this is such a talking point at the moment.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, the migration numbers are really adding to the high levels of demand and certainly not helping house prices, vacancy rates and so forth. But really, this is the result of really poor planning for many, many years in terms of migration numbers and not building enough homes. Now, when migration numbers have been peaking, it's probably at the worst time it can happen, because we just continue to have demand outstrip supply.
Yeah, and the other thing that you'll really be feeling with regard to this is if you look at your membership, people are leaving the industry. Builders are, they've sort of said to themselves, this is just too difficult. And that is a number that you're seeing growing year on year.
Well, that's right. We've estimated that we need about 83,000 new workers to the sector right now if we're going to actually meet the Housing Accord targets. Again, that impact of those migration numbers on demand is just tripling the problem in some ways, because we're not building enough homes. And then when we don't have enough builders and enough tradies to actually supply those homes, the situation is likely to get worse.
Yeah, because the builders themselves, they've got problems like limited land supply, slow planning systems, rising taxes and charges, and stubbornly you've got the high material and labour costs. Then if you look at it at the other end, you're trying very much to attract new blood into the industry. You got two different things happening at both ends of the scale. As the managing director, this must be very, very frustrating for you, Jocelyn.
Well, it's frustrating and, there's never a dull moment. Let me say there's just plenty of work to do on that. And look, we've estimated that about almost 50% of a house and land package in Sydney is fees, taxes and additional charges. And a lot of that has to do with the length of time that it takes to actually get a home to market in the first place. So all those costs of and financing a project until it can get to market are things that add costs to the consumer in the end. So those delays, if they can be cut and they can be sped up by reducing regulation, then we can not only reduce the burden of red tape on builders, but also reduce the cost to the consumer as well. But at the moment, it's just out of hand and it's not getting any better.
And a report from the Property Council of Australia. Now, this is pretty serious. It is showing that essential workers like teachers, nurses and police, etc. in Canberra are now largely unable to afford housing there, even with dual incomes. Detached homes are beyond reach for many, and rents are now consuming up to 40% of incomes for lower paid workers. Then on the other side of the coin in Sydney, there is a major proposal underway to redevelop ageing hotels in Darwin Harbour. Now, this is good news because the plan includes replacing Novotel and Ibis suites with new hotel brands, with the upside of adding about 1,000 residential units. However, some concern has been raised about shifting from tourism to residential focus in a precinct traditionally orientated around events and visitors. So, you can't please everybody, can you? On one side, we've got 1,000 residential units and it's an upgrade for the hotel. But no, there is always a negativity that has got to creep into it. Let's go to Sydney right now and catch up with Jasmine Calgaro from Ray White in Penrith. And Jasmine, good morning and welcome into the Real Estate Breakfast. That's the point, eh? You can never please everybody when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is hard to please everybody and keep everybody happy.
Now, you were telling me that you've been pretty happy over the last 10 years working in real estate. I said to you off air just last week, I spoke to a couple of people, real estate agents that have been going 12, 14 years, straight out of school, and you're another person, 10 years in, straight out of school, although your parents did want you to go to university. You went to university, but it wasn't for you.
Yeah, you're right. I did go to university for a short period. I think I lasted about one term. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. And I really wanted to do real estate. And yeah, I've been here 10 years now and I haven't looked back.
Now, tell us a little bit about your area, because I noticed that in Sydney West, homes in Penrith and Macarthur, they are moving faster than anywhere else, fueled by demand in the city's more affordable pockets. And then if we go to Jamison Town, which is where you are, and Warrington County near Penrith, properties are spending as little as 12 days on the market. So there's a reasonable amount of heat.
Yeah, I think it's no coincidence that obviously the Macarthur and Nepean region are doing so well, that the airport will be right in the middle, but more so the affordability aspect as well. And we have units right up to acreage available. So it is very well rounded in that regard. And yeah, I think the affordability aspect is the main thing.
Now, affordability among first home buyers, that is one of the reasons that people are moving into your region. And they're sort of coming from suburbs out, 3 or 4 suburbs away, where they just can't afford to buy, maybe stay close to mum and dad and the family.
Yeah, we have noticed, especially in the last 12 months, that we are getting a lot of people into the market that we haven't quite met yet. They're coming from Blacktown, Parramatta, Kellyville, whatever the case, but just into that Penrith LGA where it is a lot more affordable to get their foot in the door.
Now, first home buyers, you are talking to a lot of them. We've got the first home buyers scheme, which is coming up on the 1st of October. Very, very close now. Very exciting for a lot of these first home buyers. Are you starting to hear that excitement build?
We sure are. We have obviously had the scheme in place at $900,000 for a few years now. With our median house price being $950,000 here in Penrith, it is locking those first home buyers out a little bit at this stage. So I think that the new scheme coming in is very exciting, and it means that they're going to have a fair chance to get into properties like this.
You know, a lot of real estate agents, they love dealing with first home buyers, but sometimes it's not always that easy, because people will say, yes, really interested in this property. You will go down the rabbit hole with somebody, and then you discover, they actually don't have the deposit altogether. This is a frustration that a lot of real estate people feel the sharp end of. How bad has that been for you over the last few years leading us up to this point?
Yeah, look, like you said, it is very exciting dealing with first home buyers and being a part of that big milestone in their lives. But you do often get buyers coming through not knowing where to start, which is fair considering that they've never done it before. You know, they just might be having a sticky beak to see what their money gets them. Now with the new scheme coming into place, we're going to have a lot more buyers able to get into the market. Obviously, they only will be required to have a 5% deposit, and they'll be avoiding lender's mortgage insurance. You know, getting that 5% deposit together might be a little bit more tangible than getting the full 10%.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.